Good morning, church, and a very happy Advent season to each one of you. And though it looks like the pandemic seems to have robbed us of many things that we held dear or took for granted, I'm so grateful for all that we still have. And this morning was again a witness to that virtual singing that we could experience together, to be able to share our voices and our faces over screen. So, though it falls far short of the reality that we would rather have and we long for, there is some good in it, definitely. And over the 9 months of this pandemic, many of us have probably gotten used to being on screen and sharing screen and this virtual reality that probably when we come face to face, we might have to learn to literally readapt ourselves to what it means to have face to face interactions. Um, but I hope that the time of sharing and singing that we have enjoyed together would have prepared us for the Christmas season, um, brought in a lot of joy and warmth, and strengthened us at this time as we heard those old and new carols that many of the families presented this morning. I'm not here officially this morning to speak or preach a sermon because I always feel that that's a role that I can never do justice to fully. So I'd like to say that this is a time of just thinking through together as a lead up to the days or week towards Christmas and the New Year. In our family, I have probably been the least enthusiastic this year about having yet another Christmas to think about. I have been termed rightly by my children as Scrooge or the Grinch who stole Christmas, and I have been left wondering to think whether I'm in the company of few or many who would rather give the season a skip. I'd felt many a times that I'd rather lament about Christmas this year, much less celebrate it. Yet as I thought through what this season has meant or what the first Christmas day taught us and reminded us, I see or I come to see indeed that there is life amidst death, light shining out of a dark world, and self giving love in all its fullness penetrating the selfish hearts of humanity. What a great message! There cannot be anything greater. So, in the context of today, I felt that that is something that I need to revisit and deeply breathe in. That life is again, or Jesus' birth is again about life, light, and love. So, even as we sit in the familiarity of our own homes with the sights and sounds and smells infiltrating our minds and almost encroaching into that sacred space that we call as Sunday service, may we spend the next few minutes centering our minds and grasping the treasures of that first Christmas day and see how that can transform our present realities. But before I move any further, I would like to share a brief video clip of two of my favorite people from church, right out of their living room, a place where many of us have found home, comfort, haven, and it brings back several memories. So listen and be encouraged as they share their experiences on this rather very different Christmas day and Christmas time. Living room, and I'm so grateful that Uncle and Auntie agreed to share a few thoughts for us this Christmas time. So, good evening, Auntie and Uncle. So, looking back, are there some favorite Christmas memories that come to your mind?
Shall I say?
Yes, Auntie.
Earlier on, we used to be very conscious of Christmas as we always celebrated earlier in our life in different places. and we always had a big tree which my son had given to us from Canada. And we used to keep the tree in the church and then decorate it. And then one of the tall people, once even Prasad had come, putting on the clothes of the Christmas father, and he came with a big load of gifts on his shoulder, and we all sang, and O come all you faithful, and then we came forward and wished everybody, and everybody wished each other, and then the gift was distributed among the children in the church. So those things are still present in my memory.
Oh, thank you so much, Auntie.
We really had Christmas.
Yeah.
Thinking about the birth of Jesus Christ, who came to this earth to forgive and really help us to live the right kind of life.
Oh, okay, that's a beautiful memory. For those of us who have missed the early days of Peniel, here is some little one that Auntie has shared with us. Uncle, is there anything that you would like to add to the earlier memories, whether it is from your own family or the larger church family?
Auntie has told everything that during that time, when many people go away for holidays, so very small group, but those children, students who are at here, not able to go home, we used to call them for lunch and we had a good time with them.
Yeah, so this again points to the heart of what Peniel has always stood for. Small fellowship within the home, and that's how it began. Of course, we have grown over the years. I'd like to just ask something about the present. It has been very difficult times, a very different Christmas season this year. And in this present reality, are there any thoughts of how we can make Christmas still very meaningful in all our celebrations?
Now we are only sitting at home, but we can think about because in New Year time we used to have fellowship and prayer, families meet. Like that, this time because we are separated, probably 2 or 3 families in a particular area meet on the Christmas day and have fellowship with each other and have a time of sharing and prayer. And then of course nice good dinner, lunch.
That's true. What is Christmas celebrations without the food? I can see a lot of smiles around when we say food. Okay, which will just refocus or shoot into a little bit of the future. Do you see the light at the end of this dark tunnel that we seem to be in? Is there any message of Christmas that is going to help us to believe that things are going to get better?
The promises of the Word of God, if we really depend on it, it is possible. Because the Lord is still willing and wanting to reach out to everyone. And the Lord will reach out when we call upon Him. And that will be the best that can happen. And many can be told about that Christ and the birth, not only birth, but His death and resurrection. That's a beautiful thing we can share with others.
Yeah. I think that's a great hope that can come out of this season, and so many who are lost can find their way back home. Uncle would like to add on?
What I think that now we are sitting at home and on online we are conducting this service. When we look at it, that people from different parts of this world preach the word and also do the worship. It is nice and good one way, thinking about when God gave us the vision and the word that we will send people from here and they will go and preach others and God's vision is being fulfilled in a way that we will disciple and send them, and they will disciple others. But it is nice in one way that this Corona. Look at the Corona in a positive way, that we are able to enjoy fellowship not only in this country, other countries also. But we have the hope that this corona will be removed, eradicated, and then we may once again go to church and have not. The best thing is to have fellowship with each other, talk and pray and encourage, and all those things are not there. But we are hoping that soon we'll restore that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Uncle. I think that's the optimist in Uncle, always to look for the best in any situation. And this too has been family and friends joining from all over wouldn't have been possible. Even the very fact that they are going to be sharing so much of even what they have shared now with people all over is an amazing thing. But we do long for the day when we can all be together in church. Thank you, Anandi Auntie and Thomas Uncle. It's truly been our privilege to be a part of sharing many things this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you for arranging all these things, Anna. I appreciate it.
It's always refreshing to hear from the Thomases. Thank you, Auntie Nalini and Thomas Uncle, for encouraging us with those very special words. Let me begin with an old Christmas classic. Set in the early 1800s, a tale is told of a mean-spirited, selfish banker who on Christmas Eve was visited by the ghost of his old business partner, followed by three different ghosts: the ghost of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future. It doesn't take long for you to guess who I'm referring to or what the tale is about. It's from Charles Dickens' famous The Christmas Carol. It's a great family read together and a must-watch movie during this Christmas season. It goes on to narrate about the ghost of Christmas past who takes Ebenezer Scrooge on a journey to recall or revisit his unhappy childhood and shows him a man who was much more in love with his money than his own fiancée. The ghost of Christmas present shows Scrooge being shown into the house of his own clerk, Bob Cratchit, and the family that was having so little and yet was so joyful in their celebrations on that Christmas Eve. And Tiny Tim, who's Bob Cratchit's son, who is severely ill but yet so full of spirit. Scrooge is also given a sneak peek into his nephew Fred's Christmas celebrations, something that he was invited to but had rebuffed. And the final scenes are from the ghost of Christmas future, who shows the dreadful death that awaits Scrooge and terrifies him. Somehow, to Scrooge's own credit, he takes the messages from the ghosts of past, present, and future and mends his ways and recognizes his folly. And as Christmas Day dawns, much to his credit, he wakes up with exuberant joy and in a mood to celebrate his life and passes on his love and joy by sending the biggest turkey in town to Bob Cratchit's home and heads off for his own part in the celebrations at his nephew's home, Fred's home. What I want to allude to is the fact that this story that was written by Dickens ages back holds several messages for us. If you read through carefully and if you enjoy the Old English, there's so much woven in there which reflects the meaning of that first Christmas day. But here is a picture of Bob Marley, not something that you would want to associate Christmas with. But here are his words that made me stop and think as I reread and as I rewatched that movie. The quote goes like this: "Why did I walk through the crowds of fellow human beings with my eyes turned down and never raise them to that blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode? Were there no homes to which this light could have conducted me?" So here we see a very remorseful Jacob Marley, who is now bound in this long chain and is made to restlessly roam the earth. And as you could have seen and noticed in that picture, the chain is made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and a purse and heavy purses that are wrought in steel. Life as we know it has changed in the last 9 months or more. We human beings who were so much in control, who knew how to navigate through the twists and turns of life, are now lost and left groping. Yet these times, I realize, have provided us with a wonderful opportunity to turn back to the very giver of life. It was he who said, "I have come that they might have life and have that life in fullness." As we enter the days leading up to Christmas, the first image that I want to place before you today is life, abundant life, that Christ's coming opened out to each one of us. Are we allowing ourselves to experience this abundance, or do we walk with eyes turned down? Do we enable others to enter into this abundant life by raising them up to that blessed star? Or are we so caught up in our own small, petty, striving, selfish ways, and in turn making our own chains that will eventually bind us? It's a good time to take stock as to whether our lives are dependent on the only source, Christ Himself. Are we leading others who are dependent on us, be it our own children or the spiritual children that God has entrusted us with, towards this great source of abundant living? The second image that comes to mind as I think about Jesus' birth on earth is light. Clearly, this is no romantic flicker, a cozy flame that just fades out in a few hours. Instead, this is the eternal Son of Life who rises up with healing in his wings. John, the beloved disciple of Jesus, echoes it as he writes a favorite oft-quoted Christmas statement: "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." All of us love light. None of us like a dull, grey day. It seems to snuff something out in us. We love to see light: starlight, moonlight, sunlight, daylight, anything that is warm, sunny, of course not too hot, soothing, awakening us to a new dawn, new hope, and new vigor. There is no denying today of the depths of darkness that surrounds us in the world around us, or that infects each one of our souls. But I am encouraged that this darkness was acknowledged on that first Christmas day too. And this is the foundation of my celebration this year, that the birth of Christ is God's assurance that in the long battle with the dark, light will always win. That the birth of Christ is God's assurance that in the long battle with the dark, light will always win. Are we bearers of that light? The Bible encourages us with these words: "Let your light so shine among men that they may see and glorify the Father in heaven." As we almost end thinking together, the final image that I would like to present before us is the image of love. There's yet another popular short story that emerged again in the late 1800s, written by Henry Van Dyke. He narrates the story of the fourth wise man. Tradition has it that there were three wise men. The Bible records it two, but tradition has it that there was another one by name Artaban, one of the Medes from Persia. He, like the other Magi, also got to see the signs in heavens proclaiming that a king would be born among the Jews. Like them, he set out to see this newborn king, a ruler, carrying with him treasures fit for a king: a sapphire, a ruby, and a pearl of great price. However, he stops along the way many a times to help. The first one to whom he rendered his help was to a dying man, which later, because of which he stopped and delayed himself, he missed the caravan in which the other wise men were journeying on. Because he missed the caravan and he couldn't cross the desert only with a horse, he was forced to sell one of his treasures in order to buy camels and the necessary supplies for his trip. He then commences his journey but arrives in Bethlehem too late to see the child whose parents had now fled to Egypt. But even while he was there, he was able to save the life of yet another male child who was on the verge of being killed with the price of yet another one of his treasures. He continues his travels to Egypt and many other countries searching for Jesus for many years and continuing to perform acts of mercy, charity, love along the way. After 33 years, Artaban is still a pilgrim. Artaban now arrives in Jerusalem just in time for Jesus' crucifixion. He spends his last treasure, the pearl of great price, to ransom a young slave woman who is being sold into slavery. Yet as he finally encounters Jesus face to face, feeling rather inadequate, empty-handed, with nothing to offer the King of Kings, he hears a very reassuring voice. Verily I say unto thee, inasmuch as thou hast done it unto the least of these my brethren, thou hast done it unto me. What struck me out of this story was the concept of along the way. Artaban had a mission, but yet that did not deter him from turning a blind eye or a deaf ear to what he saw along the way. The mission of reaching targets, achieving goals, fulfilling purposes are definitely important. I do not wish to undermine these. But do we slow down to show love along the way? Are we so single-minded and focus-driven that we tend to overlook and hurry without stopping by to show love? Often we have chosen the Great Commission over the greatest commandment. People in India, particularly at this time, people around us, need to see us as a people who reflect God's love. A love that was willing to become poor, a love that was willing to die, a love that was slow enough to keep pace with you and me. To put it in the words of Kosuke Koima in his book, 3 Miles and Our God, it cannot be expressed any better, for he says, God walks slowly because he is love. If he is not love, he would have gone much faster. Love has its speed. It is a spiritual speed. It is a different kind of speed from the technological speed that we are accustomed to. It goes on in the depths of our life, whether we notice or not. At 3 miles an hour, it is at the speed with which we walk. Therefore, the speed the love of God walks. So as I have just alluded to these 3 images, life, abundant life, light, eternal Son of Righteousness bursting forth with healing in his wings, and love, a deep, profound, self giving love. I hope these images would stay with us and help us to continue to reflect, to ponder, to be refreshed, and to be restored in the days that are leading up to this very different Christmas Day. Wishing each one of you a continual blessed season of Advent and a great way of finishing this rather extraordinary year. Thank you.